103rd Foundation Day ceremony, and today is the last day of the celebrations. And in this while, we were hosting a lot of lectures in all the faculties. So this is a part of that lecture series. And on the behalf of the Faculty of Architecture and Acoustics, I have the honor to welcome two of the very distinguished and renowned architects of the country, architect Sanjay Singh, who is the director ARCOP, and architect Mukul Goyal, who is the principal architect MG Associates Gurugram. I request our distinguished guests to please occupy the seat on the dais, sir. Please. As a customary ritual in Jamia, on the onset of the event, we'll start with the recitation of the verse from the Holy Quran. I request Farhan, please come and recite the holy verse. Please, sir, have a seat.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم اقرأ باسم ربك الذي خلق خلق الإنسان من علق اقرأ وربك الأكرم الذي علم بالقلم علم الإنسان ما لم يعلم. मैं पनाह मांगता हूँ अल्लाह की शैतान से। शुरू अल्लाह का नाम से जो बड़ा मेहरबान निहायत रहम वाला है। पढ़ो पढ़ो अपने रब का नाम लेकर, जिसने सारे जहां को बनाया, जिसने इंसान को खून की एक कतरे से बनाया। पढ़ो और तुम्हारा रब बड़ा मेहरबान और दयालु है, जिसने कलम के ज़रिए से इंसान को इल्म सिखाया और इंसान को वो सारी बातें सिखाईं जिसका उसको कोई इल्म नहीं था। बेशक अल्लाह ने जो कहा वो सच कहा। थैंक यू।
Thank you, Mujib. Once again, I welcome our distinguished guests. Fortunately, both of the guests are my seniors from GCL Lucknow. I'm meeting Sanjay Singh sir for after 32 years. When I joined college in 1991, Sanjay Singh sir was in final year, just winding up his thesis. In a few months, we stayed together, and Mukul Singh sir is 1994 pass out. And welcome you, sir. I am Mohammad Ziauddin, sir. I'm associate professor here. I'm former HOD also in the department. Let me introduce the audience to the speakers. We have here our master students of recreation architecture, and they are currently doing the project on ORCHA, and they are trying to analyze the potentials and gaps for tourism, sustainable tourism development. We have got students of final year BARC whom I am teaching professional practice, and they have done series of seminars. First one on plan of work, where they have discussed the stages in any architectural project, and where actors and roles and responsibilities and challenges they have discussed. They are also doing in second phase series of some case studies in Delhi of mega projects, and Bharat Mandapam is one of the mega project. Who is the architect? Sanjay Singh sir is the architect of that project. And we also have second year students here who are learning to learn ideation and also learning to design in contoured site. And I think Mukul sir is an apt expert who will deal with how to design in contoured site, because he's an expert on designing resorts. So let me introduce you to our first speaker. Sanjay sir, architect Sanjay Singh is Director, ARCOP Associate Private Limited. Since 1993. For 30 years and 3 months almost, he's been in ARCOP. And he has designed state-of-the-art buildings in almost every discipline. Architect Sanjay Singh is currently associated with four other companies where he is director. His key projects are Laburnum, JP Institute of Information Technology, and redevelopment Pragati Maidan. And he is also known for his masterful work on the iconic Bharat Mandapam, the venue of the G20 summit in New Delhi. It's the largest convention center in Delhi. This architectural marvel serves as a window to India, beautifully showcasing the country's rich heritage and cultural diversity to the world under his visionary guidance. The project was conceptualized in association with AIDAS Singapore. His talk of the today is on the topic design ideation. Now, without wasting any time, sir, I request Architect Sanjay Singh, sir. Before, sir, I request Al Shifa to please present the sapling to our guest, to Architect Sanjay Singh, sir. Alina, please present the sapling to Mukul Singh, sir. Mukul Goyal, sir. मुकुल सिंह सर हम प्रोफेसर थे, बहुत टेरर था उनका. Neha, please present the bouquet to sapling to Kamar Irshad sir. And Preeti, present the sapling to myself. Stage is all yours, sir.
Okay, good morning, everybody. So before I begin, I think let me congratulate the entire gathering here. It's always a special feeling. One goes to different professional functions to present lectures, but it's always special to come back to students, because I think that's where the whole journey starts. And this is a great time to be architects. The country is going through a lot of transformation. You guys should be encouraged to make your mark in the professional field and do the best work possible. So let me begin with the topic today. We are looking at design inspirations, and I think this is an apt topic for the professional students, whether masters or bachelors, because I think the germination of a concept is one of the most important aspects in any project to take shape, whether it be it Bharat Mandapam, which is a mega project, or be it a residential house. I think the germ of the concept is one of the most important aspects. So, let me present to you seeking design inspirations. Please go on. So we ask the question, to ourselves whenever we get a new project, what is design anyways? And this is the question I think that each of these students should be asking themselves. What is design after all? Go on. So we look at, the basic fundamentals of design, creativity, fundamental aspects, functionality, and the project being contextual, and they overlap somewhere to create what we call design. And of course, one can go about the quotes. I will not bore you with them. Please go on. The more interesting stuff further down. And when we talk about design inspirations, what are the mediums? What are the sources of these design inspirations? You could be inspired from nature. You could be inspired from the context of a project. The project could be story driven. It could be history, it could be literature, it could be shapes and objects, and I'm not listing down the seventh one, could be absolutely anything under the stars. So that's when we said that, what can be the design inspiration? You can look at nature, you could look at an open book, that could be a design inspiration for a form of a building or for a context. There are these absolutely fantastic forms of shells, and we will show you how we, were able to interpret them in one of the projects, or the arches that you find in these natural formations of rocks. Go on. So just to give you example of, some of the greatest architects that the world has produced, and how they've interpreted. Look at the lotus and look at the lotus temple. It's a very direct, sort of inspiration from the form of the lotus. Then we have the gherkin. This is a Norm Foster building, sea sponge. Look at the picture above and the picture below, and how they've been able to interpret it as a facade of the building. That is something which could be an amazing case study of how natural forms around you can inspire these great ideas in form of buildings. A jackfruit, one of the most uncommon. Like I said, you could get inspired from anything under the sun, under the stars. So jackfruit, led to Esplanade Theatre, and that became one of the most fantastic facades. And the idea was not only that you were reproducing a jackfruit, but the idea was that you were trying to shield the building, which is supposed to be a glass globe, with these shells that get produced in the form of jackfruit, skin, and use that as shading elements. And then one went around, sort of transforming it and developing it so that it could really achieve what the concept seeked it to achieve. Please go. So we look at our journey, of where and how we've been able to use the, various design inspirations. In terms of master plan, we've used it in terms of master plan. We've used it to, develop the building form. We've been able to use it to develop the facades, and, many more things. But these are the three things that we, come to mind instantly. Please go on. So we what I tried to do today is, I don't want to get into the complex words. That's not my nature. I come very direct, and that's why I take examples of how we've been able to do it, so that can inspire some of the students here to go on a exploration journey. So this is the Hazira Smart City at Surat, where we did the master plan development. Please go on. And we looked at Surat. Hazira is very close to Surat, just about 30-40 minutes drive from Surat. And we looked at, what does the city of Surat sort of bring to mind? All right. There are textiles, of course, so one looked at that. But what Surat is famous for is diamonds. So we said, can we look at that, and can we create a thread from which you bring in, the concept of the master plan? And it's close to, I think, about 5,000 hectares of master plan development. So this is the site. Okay, you see it's, interestingly, we overlaid it with the master plan of Manhattan City, and it perfectly matched. Almost on the size and the FAR that we were trying to build. So we said, here you have a case study. So we looked at this, form. All the blue that you see is actually the, the Arabian Sea. Go on. And if you really look at it, we laid out a boulevard, a spine in the center, which was dotted with these diamonds shapes, right? And we will show you how we've been able to develop around that. And then once that was done, then one went around saying that, look, every diamond will start signifying something, to the city, so that you could create recreational, you could commercial, institutionals, and, play fields and whatnot. Okay, go on. So we, look at that one square, which was laid out along the central boulevard, all right, in the shape of a diamond. The entire system moved around it. The industrial and the port was kept on one side, because this is primarily a port city. So you get the port on the one side where the ships would come and anchor, and then you layered it with the industrial, and then the residential and commercial came along the boulevard spine. And there is this occasional water stream which has been cut through to join the two sides of the Arabian Sea. Please go on. And like I said, I think one of the big mistakes that many of our design professionals do is that we get attached to a concept, to a design inspiration, but we don't carry it through. Okay, and I think that's the worst thing that you can do. Then it is better not to get inspired from these fancy forms and stick to functionality and be good with that. Okay, when you get inspired from a image, you have to develop it so that it really works. So we took that and we looked at the general strategy and the layers summary with respect to water infrastructure, of how you bring in water along this spine, the main green infrastructure which wraps itself around those diamond shapes, the pedestrian and the soft mobility which goes around the central squares. We created the road connectivity, and of course the metro and railways connectivity. Like I said, it's a port city, so that's an important aspect. Go on. And then we looked at the transport strategy, and the central boulevard was created as this multi-utility corridor, which is going to give you space for pedestrians, for vehicles, for metro, and also create an experiential journey which is going to be all along the buildings, so that people could at leisure walk and experience the edges of the building. So that's what we did with the central boulevard. Go on, please. And then we looked at the arterial roads and how the safe and sociable pedestrian routes can be created all along this spine. Go on. We also looked at the water strategy and the energy channels, how you can do that. We've also proposed to them that there could be these fantastic mini turbines which you can place at the seabed, because the sea is shallow as you come towards the land, and by the current of the undersea, these can create energy. These are of course ideas, they need to be developed. Go on. The waterfront strategy of how you can create recreational and social waterfronts and parks, so that the land value can get boosted, and of course you can create a 24/7 active spine all along the water. Water is great, all our civilizations over so many number of years have developed around water. So I think that's something that cannot be, that's an opportunity that cannot be let go of. Please go on. And green strategy, of all along these spines as well as parkways have been developed with typical sections and creating biosoils, so that not one drop of water goes out. These are you're surrounded by salty water, so each of the rainwater that falls in here is most precious, like a diamond it is. Go on. So we looked at further development of the detailed layout here. Go on. And we looked at how you can create the low height, mid highs and high rise residentials. We layered them, and if you see, we've created these squares. One of the inspirations that also came from the study of the city master plan of Spain, okay, Barcelona, which is basically squares, and these create these courtyards inside mid-rise buildings. So all the private activities, family activities happens in the internal courts, and the public activity happens along the street edge. Go on. And that shows you how this got developed. Now here you would see that while we started with the diamond, we started playing around with it. We created the central spine, and we created these central squares, so you can literally count them, and each of these squares was doing something. Okay, we'll show you that. So that's the 3D view of how the waterfronts have been developed, how the spine has been developed, how the functionality of the port has been retained. And there are these two channels of water which we brought in, rather three channels that we brought in into the fabric of the city. Please go. This is the central axis, and now you would see how it started as an idea. And like I said, it's very important to understand that it's all very hunky-dory to say that you pick up a concept or you pick up a jackfruit and say I'm going to develop my building around it. But if you do not develop that, it is going to remain what it was, jackfruit. So this was the central axis. Let's go on. And that's how it gets developed. So you could literally see now, you would start seeing, you can see those squares on the right, replicas of Barcelona. Okay. And the central axis becomes the huge celebratory axis, something like, the Paris central spine. Please go on. You just go back, please. Yeah. So the commercial, square that you see in the middle has these iconic buildings which are cut at different angles. Again taking the concept of the diamond further. You see the two buildings on the left of that, the wall-like buildings. Again, the facade has been sort of chiseled in a manner that it brings, those recalls back. Go on. This is one of the, marinas and the squares. Go on. That's where it started and that's where it ended. So, when you take a concept, you carry it through. It's a lot of responsibility that you carry on your shoulders as an architect to, carry your concept through. And you would also in this image appreciate how we've been able to bring in the water and merge it with the city instead of having one big mass. You've been able to create waterfront opportunities all along the city. Go on. Waterfront. Go on. And that's what it becomes. So you see all the celebratory and commercial real estate that you can put along the water and really create a space which is going to be very, very social and very active all the time. Go on. Yeah, this will show it to you in a better way. Please go on. Yeah, so see that we've again brought in the recalls of ghats and created these squares and places where people could really have fun. And look at, please go back. Look at the facade of all the buildings. Again, like I bring in to you that while the buildings which are mid-rise, they've been understated, but look at the high-rise buildings, which are placed at specific locations. Their facade has been, inspired from the concept of the diamonds. Go on. Okay, go on, please. So this was a project, Haryana Bhavan in Delhi, and now you would sort of have a look at a concept which is very different, from the one that you just saw, which was based on what the city produces. Okay, this is going to be on the basis of what the city holds, what the city is known for, what the city is. Go on, please. So we looked at Haryana Bhavan and we said, what is it that we can do which is going to embody the concept of Haryana? And Haryana is a unique state. It will not have that many number of historical monuments, but there are references which can be drawn, from two standpoints, because this is Haryana and this is in the middle of capital city, Delhi. So we said, why don't we merge the two? And we started looking at, inspirations for that. So we looked at Haryana, where we had the Pinjore garden, a very formal laid out garden, and we looked at Lutyens Delhi, which is again very similar. And we started drawing, sort of parallels between the two to see if one exists in that. And you look at the images on the left bottom, and look at the images in the middle, which is the Mughal gardens at Rashtrapati Bhavan. They follow very strong axial plannings. They follow very strong garden concepts. So we looked at that and we said, why don't we try to do something with this? Please go on. And then we came up with this idea that what do all the buildings do? The buildings get developed first, the landscape comes later. And here we said, if the garden has been the underlying theme in the context of the site as well as the context of the building itself, so why don't we just turn the whole thing around and say that, hey, let's not look at the building first, let's look at the landscape first. So we just took this site, which was a perfect rectangle, and we laid out a formal, garden on top of the site, make it into a grid. And from that, some of the squares of the garden became building blocks, right? Go on. Formed them up, created that circular thing, which was, something which became a little different, merged some of the blocks because of the functional requirements. Go on. And then, brought in the water channels. Go on. And that's the master plan that got developed, and you can see in this that literally the building blocks are really the landscape blocks which have, been built upon. And, the garden still remains. So garden comes out as a major element, creating these axes, which are very strong axes. It opens up the courtyard on the bottom side. It creates these avenues or the alleys from which you connect the outer skin of the building or outer, profile of the building to the inner one. And the whole thing sits literally like a pavilion in the garden. Go on. And that's what you get. So it's a low-rise building, ground plus 3, ground plus 4 max, and it stands amongst a garden. Go on. Then we looked at another project, which is a film city in Rajgir, Bihar. So here we looked at a film strip, and we said, what is it that signifies films, lights, sound, action? I'm sure a lot of you will love this. And we, developed this master plan, and we'll show you how. Go on. So we looked at this film. We broke that film into the 3 aspects and overlapped them. Go on. So light, sound, action, zone 1, zone 2, zone 3. Okay. And we created axes and we created overlapped zones. Go on. Right. Okay. That gave way to this master plan, which will come in front of you now. Go on. Created the, landscape and created the water. You have to create a dream world for the Bollywood. Go on. And that's what your master plan came about. And the top was planted in similar fashion like you have the film strips. Go on. And that's what the film city looked at. These are boxes which are really studios. They don't need any natural light. They rather will not have natural light. So we took the front, we made it look like the film reel that we had, and then we created this Disneyland around it. Go on. Okay, now this is a very special project. It's under construction right now. It's a landscape project. First one that came my way, and I said, oh, okay, bring it on. I'll take the challenge. Go on. So this is Bharat Vandana Park. It's 200 acres of landscape right behind the airport, and it's actually in the direct line of the aircraft's landing. And we created this landscape. Go on. And one of the important aspects of this was this bridge, sky bridge, where people could walk. And these were pylons which are 45 meters high. I would have taken them 100 meters high, but the civil aviation didn't allow me. That's the maximum that they allowed me. And this is one of the first ones in India, and probably one of the very few ones all across the world where it is a cable stayed one side cantilevered bridge. Okay, you can see that the bridge, because of the shape of the curve, can only be supported by cables from one side. If you put the cables on the other side, you'll have a headroom problem. Okay, go on. And now our challenge was, how do you ensure that this is not going to look like a copy of the Gardens by the Bay? Okay, so we said, we're going to make it very Indian, and we looked at various inspirations, and I'm sure a lot of you here would have had these leaves put in your books. We used to have, I don't know about this generation, but we used to have, and you would put these leaves in your books, you forget about them, they will dry out and they will produce a fabric or a pattern which you see on your right, because the leaf will just wither away and the veins would remain, right? So that is one image that stuck with me. Go on. And then we looked at these images where people in their gardens do these small bonsais and do that appropriate, I think, presentation given the kind of gifts that we've been given here. Go on. So we looked at that and we said we are going to create these kind of pylons which could really become fanciful structures. Go on. Just use pipes, put them together and create this form. Go on. And that's what it could become. Right? Go on. It started with 2 bridges, one at 6 meters, one at 18 meters. They made us reduce it to 1. Okay, let's go. Yeah. Okay. And then, we developed further, go on, of how these pylons can be developed, and that image can be brought back as infills. Go on. Now that's the project that was being referred to, Bharat Mandapam. Again, I think the design inspirations came to a rescue when we were stuck with the government, rejecting one proposal after the other. Go on. So that's the Bharat Mandapam for you. Go on. That's the master plan. So, what you see below is, at the bottom is the Mathura road. You have on the side is the Bhairav Marg, and on the top is the ring road. That's the railway tracks, and the ring road is beyond that. What I must also tell you, that interestingly, when we were doing this project, we realized that this project can actually end up doing a lot of damage to the city fabric, because the traffic was in a nightmare. And we came up with this concept that we're going to suggest improvement of the traffic infrastructure, and that thought gave birth to that road, that subway tunnel that has gone from under the site, and it started from the Purana Killa road. From the C hexagon, it's gone down, and it goes along the exhibition halls, goes under hall number 6, under the railway tracks, and emerges at the ring road. And I think that's something that really solved the problem. We will also know in November whether it is really solved or what it has done. But we came up with, making the entire road from the ITO till Oberoi Hotel signal free by doing U-turns and things like that, which is definitely helping. I've driven there, so that's something which is very good. And that, I think, brings to us to a point, of how you should really look at mega projects. Okay. It should be a case where I think this project demonstrates how, you can, instead of taking from the city and burdening the city, how can you give back to the city, right? And this gave the solution of the traffic nightmare that was not its making, that it would have even further worsened it, but it was already there, so it was sort of giving back to the city instead of taking from the city. I think that's an important thing for us to understand, that projects and their impacts go beyond the boundary lines of the site itself, and we must respect that and try to solve that. Please go on. So that's the image of the Bharat Mandapam. Go on. So this is what I was talking about, that we presented many designs. There was this original design that you see there, which was taking inspirations from Rajrewal's triangles. Then the window to Delhi, which lifted up the form, and a very strong form. Then it was a smart city, smart park, a lifted pavilion, glass pavilion with greens all around. And then there were contemporary, classic, and all of them got rejected. They kept coming up with something or the other. I like this in this, but I don't like that. Why don't you take it away and whatever. So we said, what do you do? So go on. So, we were just brushing through books and internet, and we came through this very interesting image. We were very mindful of the fact that Yamuna River, was flowing at this site at one point of time, and we were looking for similar metaphors. So this is Yamuna as a metaphor. So you can see Yamuna and Ganga, which is being depicted by the two fishes. The thing at the top is the elixir from where they drink, and then you have water falling down. And we looked at this image and see, can this lead us out of our miseries? And we looked at that, and that's the first sketch that got made. Okay, so you see the two fishes, they became the rams. The central part was the Bharat Mandapam, and then the water flowed down, and it created window to Delhi. And of course, the last 4 design options that were done, they were also brought in and tried to bring them together. Go on. And that's what, came out of that. Go on. And, like I said, there was a concept of window to Delhi, so we lifted the whole, landscape podium up at number 8, you can see. It says 4.5, but it's 6 meters actually. And then, at number 6 is what we call window to Delhi, which is the final level of the plenary hall. And we call it window to Delhi because from here, when you look out, you can look at the Purana Killa, you can look at the canopies of the India Gate, you can look at the Rashtrapati Bhavan. So we said, this is what is going to become a window to Lutyens Delhi. So that was the concept, and by lifting up the whole form of the plenary and the multifunction hall, which is, by the way, 7,000 capacity, and Zia, this is not only the largest in India, it is amongst the largest in the world. It's bigger than Sydney Opera House. Sydney Opera House is less than 6,000. Okay, Dwarka Convention Center, which is my other project, which we've done as EPC architects with IDOM Spain, as the concept architect, is 6,000. So this is actually one of the largest in the world. Go on, please. And then we looked at, how can you detail out the facade, very detailed exercises, look at that window to Delhi, the hanging form. By the way, this was one of the most complex and amazing structural systems that was evolved for that. So you see those triangular columns, and beyond that, the whole structure is cantilevered by approximately 18 meters. So these columns, they go up, they support that big truss on the top, which comes out, and from there, you drop those columns along the window, along that curtain wall unit, which holds the truss below. Okay, so it was a very complex structure, gave us nightmares during the designing. Go on. And that's what the structure, so you can see here the triangular columns, where are they and where the structure actually is. Go on. These are some of the images of the interiors. You have the G20 Summit Hall. They wanted something which resonates with the Lutyens. So we did the red sandstone and white Dholpur jalis and cladding on the walls, and landed ourselves into a big soup because we didn't have any surface left for acoustic absorption. So he said, what do we do? So if you look at the ceiling, that ceiling is not gypsum board, it's all fabric. It's all stretched fabric, acoustical, otherwise we would have completely lost the plot. And you see that chandelier on the top, that's 3,500 crystals, hand cut. Each one of them is hand blown. Okay. And then the leaders lounge, the lobbies, the PM rooms. Please go on. Yeah, again, lot of things inspired by Peacock. We paid a lot of emphasis to artwork, which I will just talk about. Go on. Yeah. Okay. So this is another differentiator that we brought into this project. Like I said that city enrichment is one part. Okay. But we said this was the time that we were going to the Urban Arts Commission, and they talk about the 1% budget that you spend in artwork, and we all know how it gets spent. I wanted to change that. So we said, from the first line that we drew on the paper, we said we are going to make the building wrap around art. Like you had Harana Bhavan wrap around landscape. Here we said we are going to wrap the building around artwork and create opportunities and spaces for art, and not sort of brought in art later on in form of paintings and put them on the wall. Nothing wrong with the paintings. I don't. I have nothing against that. My wife is herself an artist, so I'm very good with paintings. But I think buildings of this scale need to go that extra mile and create space makings for art. And that's the reason that you see, you see that middle image, which is of the birds flying. Now this is in a courtyard which is close to about 25-30 meters long and about 10 meters wide, covered with glass from all sides, half covered with the building on the top and half left open. And it is basically the central focal point of the lobby itself. Okay, you see the images on the bottom. Herein, we brought in the concept with the architectural jalis, which come from north, south, east, west, in every corner of the country, as well as all the textiles. There were Tanjore silk, there were patolas, there were bandhanis, And we brought all of them together. And let me tell you, as young architects, expose yourself to every single discipline, every single aspect of life. You never know, when your knowledge is going to come to use. I relied back on my limited knowledge and my wife's amazing knowledge of textiles, of sarees and all that, and I brought that together. Okay. And I'd done a lot of studies during college times on the jalis and the screens, and we brought that together as a concept for art, of course, helped by our curators in Lemon Design and Origin Inc. They helped us do that. And then you see the image on the left top. Now that is where I came in and I said, we are going to change the way Madhubanis are done, or the miniature paintings are done. I don't want just a painting to be gotten there and put there. So we said, one, we are going to fuse it, and we are going to fuse it with the marble inlay techniques of Agra. We are going to fuse it and bring in Muradabad brass work, and one has been able to do that because one has been exposed to all those elements of life. So whenever you go out, go into the bazaars, go into the small places, look at what's happening in that city, and what that city is known for. Every single thing will inspire you. Every single thing is going to add to your knowledge, which you will not even realize is sitting in your not RAM but ROM. Okay, and which when it will come to the fore. Okay, so we took these three arts and then we said we are going to put it in relief. So you look at the peacock, that's actually put in that island which is embossed with brass, and it has been made out by about 2 inches, so it floats. The corners are done by the marble inlay guys. So similarly those domes, the spires are done in actual brass, whereas the painted portion is the painted portion. Okay, go on please. Again, same images. Yeah, look at the horses. We came up, this was an example of how the building can be designed at the first stage itself, to create opportunities for art to come in as a basic inherent thread of the building itself. Look at that wall on the top. It was intentional. So this is 60 meters long by 8 meters high. So I literally was creating a canvas which was 60 into 8 meters to create this amazing artwork. We'd done many years back, Tariq had done, with us on the Indira Gandhi International Airport. So you see those mudras. Okay, that was a recall which was in mind, and we said, why don't we use that as a metaphor? And we created this Surya Shakti Alliance, the India Solar Alliance. Go on. This is Omkareshwar, again, a very, very, very different project. Go on. The government of Madhya Pradesh wanted to create this museum and statue of Omkareshwar of Shankaracharya. Okay, which gave me the opportunity along with Tariq to study the lives and teachings of Shankaracharya. And we looked at, what is it that we can do for this project. So we looked at Pushpanjali, which is of course the, basic offering medium to the deity in Hinduism. Go on. And we looked at that and we created these, forms around the central statue. Go on. And now you can see that these the statue is in the middle, put on a lotus, and then you have these floating forms which got derived from those basic image of the Pushpanjali. Go on. That's what came about. Okay. Yeah, go on. So this is one of the first TOD projects in Delhi. This is one of the two, one was Karkaduma, the other was Trilokpuri. So here we were looking at this piece of land which is 25 acres. The metro line passes right through in the center. That thing that you see in the bottom, that cross-looking thing is actually the metro station. And we had to build this multi mixed use tower. Please let me know if you're short on time. I can cut it short. Zia? Okay, great. I'll take all the time. So this is the mixed-use high-rise tower, 250 meters high. Go on. And we were looking again for inspiration for form. This is standing on a site where there were a lot of trees, very interesting shapes. It is adjacent to water, so we looked at both. Go on. And we said, can we, emulate the fluidity and the organic character of the greens and the water. So we took these two forms. Please, can you go back a little? We started with these squares, but then we started playing around with them because we said, the nature is not as strong edged as we are meaning it to be, and from there we reached to an elliptical form, which we started twisting around like the torso of the tree. Go on. And then we started creating smart glass and screens, according to the climate. Go on. And became that tower. Now this is a very interesting concept. This is again a mixed use development, and let's go on, and I'll tell you how we've gone into literally the composition of the concept element itself. So this is a mixed use building. The FAR was 5.0. okay, go on. And this is again, it was facing the sea, so we looked at the inspiration from the seashell. Go on. And now let me tell you, what we did. We again went into absolute details of what this element is all about. So see the first element, which is the stepped rising skin of the shell. Second was that internal void. We repeated that there. The third was the way outer skin is. And the fourth was these bands, shell. We took all those elements and tried to put them into the building. Go on. And that's what it became. So you would see that there are voids in the middle. The skin is more articulated. The horizontal bands have been put. There's a void that we put in the middle. And, literally we transformed that shell into a building. Go on. Okay. So this was Varanasi Craft Museum. The concept was done many years back. It was a competition entry, which the project was done by somebody else later on. Go on. And we looked at the varying skyline of Varanasi, and that's how you sort of deconstruct the concept element. So you looked at what that image signifies to you. So there is the skyline is varying. The built form is very jagged, goes in and out. The stonework is there, and the facades are actually very bold, the lower part of the facade. And then you looked at Ganga, which is dynamic waves, ghats, very important, which become an inherent part of the city culture itself. Banaras city, okay, which is narrow cities, it has a very spatial character to it. There is street art, there is labyrinth, that street-like pattern, and then we have the weavers of Varanasi, which lend that color to the whole city urban character. Go on. And we tried to bring all of that into our elevations. So look at the there's bold forms like the ghats of the vertical elements, right? We created those jagged built forms. Okay, we made those proud pillars, lifted the building up, made the edge go in and out, and created a ghat there with a series of steps. Go on. Okay, the facade also, it is providing shade from the southern screen. So there was this street, which was the Banaras street, and on the Banaras street we made it dynamic by creating these, thinner laminas of aluminum. Go on. And then we brought in those colors in the fabrics. Okay, we used Teflon, but we brought that in, and if you look at this now, those strong vertical forms, the Ganga waves on the top, the street in the middle, they all sort of bring back the image of the city to you. Go on. Go on. So this is STMC headquarters building. It has two towers. One is the executive wing, which is the office, and then the other is the deliberative wing, which is where the MCD councillors wrestle it out. Go on. And we looked at, because this is very near to Yamuna, some of the people got offended, but well, you can't please everybody. So we looked at the sari, go on, and the Yamuna, and we brought that as an element, on top of the building itself, go on. And you look at that skin on top of the main building itself, okay, which wraps around the building, it falls as you come, and then folds itself out to come on top of the deliberative wing and creates a garden at the lower level. Go on. Go on. This is WHO concept plan. Again, somebody else is doing it, but it's our concept, so we think it appropriate to show. We're very proud of this concept. And we looked at what does WHO stand for. It stands for health, and health stands for green rejuvenating spaces within the city. So how can you have a WHO office which is complete concrete and steel at the lower level, right? This also has adjacent to it a metro line, okay, which is about 12 meters high. And we said, that's not very good. They look into the building. So we created the ground level as a complete garden, which is dotted with only the auditorium at the far end, and these three, glass pavilions, which serve as the lobbies and the staircases, etc. And rest everything becomes a garden. This is a small site, just about 2.5 acres. So we said, we are going to create a garden in this, and we lifted the whole building up by close to about 50 feet. Okay, because if you just do 4-6 meters, the trees are not going to survive. Go on. And with that, I came up with these images. With you have these forests, tall trees, rays of sun coming down. So we said, can we sort of try to recreate that? Go on. So we cut the building, okay, and we allowed the sun to come in, and you can see how the building has been lifted up by 50 feet, and the garden exists. Most of the trees would be okay within about 40-50 feet or so. So you create literally a garden on the floor. Go on. And that's what it became. Go on. This is the Madhya Pradesh Medical Science University, Jabalpur. I went to see this site with Tariq, who's here, and we had only that much time before we could catch our flight to see the those Jabalpur ghats. So we quickly went there, and we hardly had probably 10 minutes and took some interesting pictures of the rock formations, and we came back with that, and I think the concept was born there. Go. This is the master plan. This is all along a very large pond. Go on. And you have the Bheda Ghat. I was missing the name, I'm sorry. So Bheda Ghat is this very interesting image, all those animated Ramayana pictures and all that were made, made here. That's where you see, and very spatial character of the river, because it goes in and out, and you have these granite mountains. So we looked at that, and we said Bheda Ghat is what it's going to be. Go on. And these are some of the pictures that I took at the site of Bheda Ghat, and we said, why don't I look at this? And we looked at the stone masonry patterns, the top below. Go on. And we said we are going to create a modern pattern out of that. So we took that, we put it into an order, we started arranging them, shifting the planes, pulling one out, pushing the one in, and created this amazing facade language. Go on. Which became that. Okay. And it's a very subtle yet very strong recall of being next to Bheda Ghat. Go on. Go on, please. This is a medical college at Sivasagar, Assam, made by one of my colleagues who's an Assami himself. Go on. So he came up with the, facade language being taken from that, I don't know what you call it, Gamosha, yeah. So that's the traditional scarf. This was all him. Go on. We created that language, on the facade itself. Go on. Now this is quite interesting. This is Siemens regional office at Gurugram. Go on. And this was the piece of the land. Go on. And now again we were looking at the facade and we said, what is a facade to a building and what is it to a human being? And we said, are there parallels? And we looked at this very interesting, and this was my study. It was my hypothesis, and I said, have you observed how the headgears shape and sizes change as you move from south of India to the top north of India? Has anybody observed that? If you look at the south, the Swamis, they have a very thin one. It doesn't overhang, right? You come to places like Madhya Pradesh and all, you see the people on the left, and you come to Rajasthan, you have people on the right. And why do you think the people on the right have pagdis like this? You know what they do? Very interesting, very scientific. That's my theory. Okay, what they do is they take the cloth, they wind it into it like a rope, and then they turn it, put it around their head. And what do you do by doing that? You created air pockets in the pagdis, which keep your head cool, right? Because Jaisalmer is so damn hot. And then what do the women do? Because they would not let the pagdis go to the woman. That's the misogynist society that we live in. So they came up with those screens, those pallus or whatever you may wish to call it. Go on. And then we looked at what are the clothes for a building. Okay, what is the external skill of a building? So there are verandas. And look at it, it's very interesting. Again, this is purely a study done by ARCOP. It's not taken from the internet or anywhere else. Look at the veranda. Ancient times, people had verandas. Historical buildings had verandas. Modern buildings, the parliament has veranda. And contemporary building have verandas. Look at the screen. From ancient to historical to modern to contemporary times, all of them have used screens. Okay, the overhangs or the jharokas, right across the edges, people have been using this. And why do you think this is happening? And how do you relate this with the kind of headgears and the clothes and all that I was talking about? What are those pagdis signifying? Why do they become so big? Why do they overhang so much? Because you want to cut the sun. So they are the chhajas, right? Go on. And we took that and I applied it as the screen, as the skin of the building. So you see the overhang chhaja, the pagdi, okay, the screen, jali, second skin, the veil of the woman, the jharokas, okay, and the verandas. All right, go on. And that's what the building was. It's a very modern building, yet very functionally effective, targeted to be platinum green building. Okay, and then it makes these three building forms, and because of the shape of the site itself. Go on. So like I said, what is your context, where do you come from? All people look different. Okay, people from various nationalities, they all look different. We all dress up differently. People from different religions look different. That's the kind of diversity that not only this country has, but the entire world has. And can that be respected? Because every single human being, every single element of nature is out there to teach you something. It depends on what you wish to learn. Okay, there are people who would say, this culture doesn't teach me anything. Well, that culture is very rich. The problem lies with you. You've not been able to understand what that culture signifies. So we say people from various nationalities look different. Please go on. But why should two buildings look the same? If people look different, why should two buildings look the same? Go on. Every building has a unique DNA because all of these buildings are standing in a context, coming from a requirement, coming from a function, coming from its adjacencies, coming from what it seeks to convey. Okay, So each of the building, in my opinion, has a very unique DNA. Go on. And that's why, you know, you should have all the kind of inspirations to create, and that I think is what architecture is all about. It goes beyond the classrooms, guys, boys and girls. um, Being an architect is a very responsible choice that you have made in your lives. It's going to be a never ending exercise of learning. Learn everything around you. You know, that guy who's, you know, preparing tea in your mess is also going to teach you something. You know, your friends, they will have different characters. Your, you know, girlfriends will have different characters. They will all teach you something, right? Because everybody is unique, and that's why we say be open to receiving. Go on. So that's what it is about.
Thank you, sir. Very mesmerizing presentation. Couple of questions in case you want to ask students. I hope there must be. Any questions? No questions? Okay. You should ask, sir, because they are. Yes, yes, sir. Yes. So, sir will be asking questions, and he is a tough taskmaster. When you're going to work in ARCOP, in case you are selected, he's a very tough taskmaster. I know that. So he'll be asking questions in the end. Now over to the next presentation. Architect Mukul Goyal, sir. Mukul Goyal, sir, is the principal architect, MG Associate, Gurugram. He belongs to city of Alwar, Rajasthan. He graduated in 1994 from GCA Lucknow. Earlier, he worked with a famous landscape architect, Mr. N.G. Shastri, in Delhi. In 1995, he joined architecture department in MNIT Jaipur as an associate professor. After 8 years of teaching, he resigned from MNIT to start on practice. Till now, he has designed a variety of buildings, around 400 projects in past 26 years. His main specialty is landscaping and resort architecture with offices, and he has got offices in Jaipur and Delhi. He has been delivering special lectures to various national and international universities, including Cambridge University in 2017 and Bandung University, Indonesia in 2018. He is also an active member of the Indian Institute of Architects and was a vice chairman of the Rajasthan chapter in 2022-23. He has won the Best IAA Member Award in 2018. He was a co-editor of the IAA Journal and the National Magazine of Architects in 2022-23. On the international front, he is presently the chairman of ARCOP, Committee on Professional Practice in Asia. Currently, he resides Delhi. The topic of his presentation will be recreating ecology, experiments in landscape design. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Long introduction. But a very short introduction is that I am a graduate of GCA Lucknow, and one thing common that runs between me, Zia and Sanjay sir is that we belong to a generation where there were no computers. Number one. Number two, we were very lucky to be a part of the Fine Arts College out there. So we were actually a department of Fine Arts which later on graduated into a architecture, full-fledged architecture college. So arts was a part of our DNA. So don't be surprised if my presentation and Sanjay sir's presentation similar in context. But of course, the projects he showed were of a great size, magnitude, and it was a great inspiration for all of us out here. In fact, for me also, I saw quite a few projects for the first time. So that was a great learning for myself also. So here I'll be dwelling majorly on the outside part of the building. So could we have the next slide? So a lot of people, we talk about design. I mean, I talk to a lot of students, not here only. I mean, I talk to a lot of international students also. And all of them say one thing. So we get stuck in our design class. Don't you get stuck? How many of you don't get stuck in your design class? Can I see not a single hand has gone up. So that means all of you get stuck, which is very, very, don't worry, it's natural. I mean, I also used to get stuck in my design class. So this is something which we start wondering कि यार जोर लगाने लगते हैं. But we forget one thing, that all of us out here are like 20, 22 years. मैं हमेशा कहता हूं कि जो experience है ना आपका, that starts from the age जब आपने होश संभाला. मतलब 3 साल 4 साल तक हम होश संभाल लेते हैं. मतलब we remember our years from then on. So that is when our experience starts. आज आपको अगर क्लास में वो दिया जाए किंडरगार्टन डिजाइन करने का, आप पहले अपने बारे में सोचोगे कि मेरा किंडरगार्टन कैसा था, राइट? या आपको बोला जाए कि एक बस स्टैंड, या बस स्टैंड नहीं, बस शेल्टर या कुछ ऐसे चीज डिजाइन करो, तो आप पहले अपने बारे में सोचोगे कि मैंने क्या तकलीफें महसूस की थी, और उस तकलीफों के हिसाब से फिर मैं सोचने लगूंगा कि हाँ यार, आई शुड डिजाइन इट दिस वे. You know, so you go back on your experiences. That means you are already carrying 20 years of experience with you. So don't feel scared in designing. Fall back on your experiences. So that is what it is. It's a way of life. Design is nothing but a way of life. Just fall back on that. And in architecture, we go on to 3 major subjects. A lot of students come to my office, and I've got 2 or 3 students from Jamia also, and what happens is you fall short on certain aspects. That is कि हमने आर्किटेक्चर तो सीख लिया, हमने इंटीरियर नहीं सीखा, या हमने आर्किटेक्चर सीख लिया, हमने लैंडस्केप नहीं सीखा. I mean, this is not something which is taught to you. Out here, the teachers will guide you. पढ़ना तो आप ही को है. Learning has to come from your end. Nobody is going to come and put a spoon in your mouth. So this is something which you've got to understand. So as architects, हमें क्या है कि we have a huge piece of land, and now within that land we have to design a building. We have to design the interior of the building, which is called interior design, and the part from the building to the boundary wall, that design is called landscape. So this is something which you've got to be very clear about, right? And ऐसे नहीं समझना है कि अच्छा वो landscape करेगा, वो interior. One should know everything. So let's talk about landscape design, because landscape design is something which is my specialty, and I always tell everybody कि landscape design का मतलब पेड़ पौधे लगाना नहीं है. A lot of people say ना, अरे पेड़ पौधे लगा लो, हो गया landscape. नहीं नहीं नहीं, landscape is not about पेड़ पौधे. You've got to understand that nature existed before that building. When I say nature, that means there was existence of some other microorganism to a macroorganism on that land. So हम लोग क्या है कि जब हम एक पेड़ काटते हैं, और खासकर banyan tree के लिए बोलते हैं कि a banyan tree gives nourishment and housing to almost 10,000 organisms. जब आप एक पेड़ काटते हो तो 10,000 जीवों को नुकसान होता है. जब आप बिल्डिंग की फाउंडेशन खोदते हो तो चूहे और सांप के घर बर्बाद हो जाते हैं. तो अपन करते हैं ना भूमि पूजन. भूमि पूजन का मतलब ही यही है कि हम माफी मांग रहे हैं उन लोगों से जिनको हम डिस्प्लेस कर रहे हैं वहां से. इनफैक्ट कुछ शहरों में, मैं तो जयपुर का हूं, तो आई नो जयपुर में वो चांदी का सांप और रखते हैं उसमें 5 ईंटों के बीच में, कि भाई वो सांप को माफ कर देते हैं, माफी मांगते हैं. सो this is a way, in our Indian traditions we have a way of saying sorry before doing a certain thing which we feel that it is necessary. And of course, as architects, all of us know that making buildings is our profession, but while we are making buildings, we are also disturbing a existing system of the ecology. So as landscape architects, हमारी एक जिम्मेदारी बन जाती है कि जो disturbance हमने create किया है, उस डिस्टर्बेंस को वापस नॉर्मलाइज किया जाए as far as possible. I mean, I know there are times when you cannot do it to the fullest. but as far as possible उस चीज को normal किया जाए. So this is what we are going to talk about in our presentation. Next slide. So as I told you, getting back birds and butterflies in the garden is the ultimate win for a landscape architect. That is a true signal that yes, you've done your job right. So how are we doing that? So the first thing we've got to realize is that we have to create the natural habitat for them, and we've got to create some natural source of food and water for them. So the kind of plantation, the kind of hardscape, softscape that you're going to do is going to govern whether they are going to accept your design or not. So it's not about making circles and squares, it's about getting these people back on the land. You getting it? Next. So when I talk about landscape, that means I have to look back to nature for inspiration. And as Sanjay sir has already shown us some slides, I'll just go on and elaborate on those slides. Believe me, there's a disclaimer out here that I made my presentation, Sanjay sir made his presentation separately, right? So, but because we belong to the same DNA, you might find some similarities. So here I say design is nothing but derivatives of what nature has already done for us. So all we just have to close our eyes and reimagine those years of our existence on this planet and try to visualize those places which we've loved, which we've visited. So in our times, because we did not have the internet, our source of knowledge used to be travel. Our source of knowledge used to be movies. Our source of, because the visuals which we would get, or books, पर बुक्स उस समय बहुत महंगे होते थे, पैसे नहीं होते थे बुक खरीदने का, बट ठीक है थोड़े बहुत लाइब्रेरी में बैठ जाते थे, बट दैट दोज सोर्सेज वर थिंग्स विच यू कैन ऑल्सो डू, यू कैन ऑल्सो एक्सपीरियंस. नेक्स्ट. So how does nature influence our design perception? So let's go to the first slide and see how it does. Next, 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 next. Okay, so here you have a natural setting, a forest area where you have a clearing and it's opening out to a beautiful view. Now don't we all talk about solid void composition in our first year, second year design? बस वहीं तक हम बात करते हैं फिर भूल जाते हैं, है ना? So this is something which you have to recall. This recall value has to come back. And ये कैसे recall होगा? जब हम जाके घूमेंगे, when we are going to visit places, we are going to visit natural places rather. So ये settings हमें देखना बहुत जरूरी है, and this is what nature tells us. See, a solid void composition looks so beautiful. Next. Symmetry. This is what we are taught. But what about asymmetrical symmetry? So how has nature taught us about this concept? So you see a nice mountain in the distance, lovely view, forest in the foreground, but it is not symmetrical. But the minute you put a water body in front, you see symmetry. So you see a lot of buildings, in fact Sanjay sir also showed a lot of buildings where you had nice water bodies. So that water body reflects the image of what you built. It softens the building element and it gives you a kind of a aesthetic value to the composition, or rather to the campus. Next. You have radial lines. So where did we see these radial lines? Try to subconsciously remember. So this is one picture which you could probably remember, that walking in a forest, you suddenly look upwards and you see these trees and all of a sudden they are, I mean, trying to connect at the center. So you get those images into your mind. Next. Those vertical louvers, in fact these ones also, why do they look good? Do they remind you of something? So this waterfall is just doing the same. It is telling us about those beautiful vertical lines, smooth, soft vertical lines, which you'd love to see. And that is how we get ideas which can be then implemented in our design. Next. And of course, light. You've already seen this slide in Sanjay sir's presentation. And this is what he's also mentioned, that light is one of the biggest element of design which we sometimes forget about. Light is an element of design. I mean, you've got to really stress on it. And I'm not talking about artificial light. I'm talking about natural light. These natural light is something which can create amazing drama in your designs. Next. The silhouettes. Now, when we talk about light, we talk about the opposite of light, the shadows, the silhouettes that are formed because of the light. Next. Circulation. Again, a very important part of landscape design, because you want people to move smoothly. You've seen these shoal of fishes. I mean, when they move, they never, you never heard of them banging into each other, or कोई accident नहीं होता पानी के अंदर. Why? Because they know their path. They know they move accordingly. Next. Colors. Nature provides us a complete color palette. Use it. In fact, I tell my staff, stop using these black and white pencils. Use color pencils to even sketch. Because when you use color pencils, you suddenly, your brain starts responding in the same way. So all of you, when you're working on your designs, please keep a bunch of color pencils like we also used to do beside you. I mean, computer है ठीक है, कोई बात नहीं, computer का blur, आप उसको भी use करो. Use paper also and try to sketch on those designs of yours and use different colors. Next. And of course, textures which of landscape architects enjoy using, because that is one thing you can do in a building. Of course, you can just put one texture or two, but in landscape you can use a multitude of textures with a variety of the vegetation that is available to us. Next. And of course, you've seen this slide again. Surfaces. Undulation of surfaces creates amazing shadows. And why is shadow so important for us? Why is it so important? Because of the sun. I mean, we don't want that solar radiation being absorbed by our buildings. So what do? We create shadows on the surface of the building. And the best way to do it by undulating the surface. Even in landscape, which we do, to break the surface. We don't want a plain square box. So we play with a lot of rough surfaces. Next. And infinity. You know, you want to always create some kind of, you want to show that your land is larger than what it really is. So you play with horizontal lines, and that too parallel horizontal lines, which help you create infinite spaces. So what happens, it looks as if, oh my God, my land is actually going so far off, practically, whereas it's stopping somewhere in the middle. So this is something, again, which I've just shown you a simple photograph which you have seen. All these pictures you have seen in your 20 years, 25 years, and it is nothing new. So I'm just recalling those pictures for you and relating them to the landscape design concepts that we use. Next. And of course, you don't have to have a lot of design. You don't really have to crowd it up. Even one single element can make your design amazing. Just one solitary element. So this picture can show you how one single tree in a grassland is really looking amazing. Right? So you don't really have to fill up everything. Next. And of course, drama should always be there in your design. That's why your client has come to you. You're the architect. You're going to give him something spectacular. So whatever I've spoken, texture, silhouette, light, everything you can see in this particular picture. So let's move on and see how we can use these things in our projects. So I have picked up some pictures from my projects that I've done. I'm majorly from Rajasthan, so a lot of my projects are in Rajasthan, and I had the good fortune of studying in Dehradun. So I had the best of both. I had the best of the sand development, kind of development, and the kind of hill kind of development. So both of them were in my vein. But coming back to this, each kind of you can say site, every site would have its own context, and as a context is available, your design accordingly molds. So you cannot start designing without seeing your site and the surroundings, because that's what suddenly starts inspiring you. So coming to the next slide, I'd like to talk about my landscape project, Alila Bishangarh Fort. In fact, it's been awarded as one of the best heritage properties of India by Condé Nast. And here we had a lot of discussion with the clients. In fact, the clients were from Singapore, the Leela group, and unfortunately this is a pattern in India that they first say, oh, no Indian architect, we want a foreign architect. Okay, bhai. The clients were from Jaipur, they said, fine, get your architect. He came from Spain and he did some funny spirals in the land. And the client showed it to me, what the hell is this? I said, of course, this man is not from Rajasthan. He'll create his spirals, whatever he's seen in his childhood or wherever he's from. So then they rejected his design, and finally they came back to me and they said, nahi yaar, Rajasthan ka aadmi se hi karwayenge, wo hi samjhega. So I said, first thing first, this fort is what we want to showcase. And therefore we need to remove all the trees. There was a lot of scrubby trees in these rocks. So I said, let's show this rocky mound. We've got these rocks, natural rocks, let's talk about them. So I had to make sketches. So the right side part is my hand sketches, which I had to explain to them. So this is one thing which impressed the client a lot, and even today it impresses clients a lot. Believe me, even today clients say, यार वो 3D view मत दिखाओ, आप तो अपना sketch बना के दिखा दो, मैं समझ जाऊंगा. That's the power of sketching, because a person or the client understands what you're doing. So here we said we are going to concentrate on browns, not greens. So when you talk to a landscape architect, वो हमेशा कहता है ना, अरे हरा कर देंगे, हरा कर देंगे. हरा क्यों करना है? You look at the thing, you're making a warrior fort, and उस warrior fort में आपका जो landscape है, that has to, we don't have to showcase landscape. We have to showcase the architect's project or the building. So we have to focus on the fort in this particular case. So that's what we did, and we had a water body. You can see a water body in front at the bottom, and with a small fire feature just to give that effect in the evenings of the warrior fort. And in fact, this sculpture was sketched by me, and it's a iron frame riveted on site. So it was, everything was done to symbolize the elements already existing in the fort. The water body, the client was very angry. He said, no, I don't want the water body, it's costing a lot. So I had to pull a black colored tripal lying on the site across where he was standing, and I took a pipe of water, जो वो तराई कर रहे थे वो आसपास में, and वो रख दिया उसमें. The minute the tripal got 1 inch, 2 inch layer of water, all of a sudden he saw the whole fort in the tripal. He says, oh my God, Mukul, आप double कर दिया budget, बनाओ इस water body को. So this is how you have to be very proactive in the design process. ऐसा नहीं हो सकता कि यार client ने मना कर दिया, चलो ठीक है छोड़ो यार, अपन नहीं करेंगे. मैं तो क्या है कि Sanjay sir knows, I was also working on the landscape part of the Bharat Mandapam for the contractor side. तो मुझे मालूम है कि कितना संजय सर को लड़ाई करना पड़ता था. He didn't know I was there, but I knew that he was there. तो मुझे मालूम है, और लोग मुझे कहते बड़े लड़ाई करते हैं. मैंने कहा आर्किटेक्ट का काम ही लड़ाई करना है भाई, लड़ने दो, नहीं तो तुम लोग तो कुछ और कुछ बना दोगे. So that used to be the thing. You have to be very proactive on the site, because कोई ना कोई ठेकेदार आके कुछ बोल जाएगा, कोई क्लाइंट को आके कुछ बोल जाएगा. You have to be there and ensure कि नहीं जी यही बनेगा जी जैसे मैंने बोला है. So coming to the next slide. So this fort was well appreciated and people loved the next slide. Loved the thing. So what I want to tell you is that हर बार आपको एक बना बनाया site नहीं मिलता. Like in the fort case, I had those rocks, I had those lovely sand dunes at the bottom, and all that. But sometimes you get this kind of a site, जो ऊपर picture दिख रहा है ना, ये मिलता है आपको landscape वाले को, आपको और कुछ नहीं मिलता. And this is another hand sketch of mine which I showed कि भाई after landscaping this place will look very nice and this whole thing will be mesmerizing. So client भी कई बार confused हो जाता है कि दिखा खड़े हम यहाँ पर हैं, दिखा ये रहे हो, क्या होगा? Next slide. So we have to talk to him कि नहीं नहीं ये ऐसे होगा. And when I talk to you about textures, I talk to you about drama, so you have to create them. Sometimes your 3D views don't do justice. ये मैंने स्केच वहीं बैठ के साइड पे एक पत्थर पे बैठ के बनाया कि भैया ये ऐसे लगेगा और बनेगा ऐसे. Because a site, a contoured site, this is in Kumbhalgarh, it's a lower hill station next to Udaipur. So बहुत सारे levels थे तो उन्हें समझ में ही नहीं आ रहा था. So then I showed him कैसे levels को हम treat कर सकते हैं and how a person can enter a building and exit the building. So this was a resort. It's called Mahua Bagh Resort वहाँ पर. So next, now it's one of the best वहाँ पर. Same thing. Again I sat with him on site itself, sketched out the thing and just gave him natural features. See, we work as landscape architects, we have to do a lot of work on natural visuals. We don't want you to feel कि अरे ये बड़ा manicured kind of area है. हाँ, जहाँ manicured kind of area करना है वहाँ करते हैं. But where you have a kind of a hospitality segment, we know the person coming is already coming from a manicured place. He's coming from an urban center. उसको कुछ और दिखाना है, उसको कुछ और देखना है. So that is what we then work on. Next. And of course, when I talked about symmetry, asymmetrical symmetry, even the water body as a swimming pool can be used in the same way. So we had a bar, we had put a pool bar beside it, and on this other side we had the deck. So this kind of abhi reflection itna acha nahi hai. I didn't get a very good photograph, but the kind of visual, because it's an infinity edge, baad mein usme again the levels are going down, and that is how I was able to create a deeper end on the other side, because the land was sloping downwards. So swimming pool to aapko seedha hi hota hai. So we were able to give the shallow on one side. Next. And this is a little aerial view of the same resort. And you can see that how wherever the level happened, that's where the cottages were placed, and we just recreated the roads along with it. And the roads were nothing but पास में निम्बा हेड़ा था तो वहाँ से पत्थर मंगा लिया था. I always use stone within the area, and luckily Rajasthan is full of stone, so that way it's not a big deal. मतलब stone वहीं बगल से निकल आता है. Even the stone cladding which is happening on the units is from the local mines वहाँ के. So black color का stone था तो black color. So it's a very good thing that you use the local area products. Next. So I had done this Ananta resort. It's one of the famous resorts of North India. Udaipur में है, and it's got almost 300 rooms and cottages format में, not in a hotel format. So cottages all over. So again, I wanted to show you that this is what we get. Just a barren site, no trees, nothing, and rocks all over, because again Rajasthan is full, it's a very rocky terrain, and Udaipur is basically a hilly area. So again, these were almost 50 acres of hills. Those 50 acres of hills को treat करना था उस हिसाब से, that it had to look like a resort someday. Anyways, I'll show you the next picture, and you'll get an idea what it looks like now. So if you notice, there's a boundary wall actually at the back, but this infinity concept which I told you when I showed you the railway tracks. So this is what it looks like, that, oh my god, the resort is actually going far off. It's quite long, it's बहुत बड़ा है resort. You know that it is बड़ा वैसे, but in this case all these roads I had created an infinity edge kind of a feeling, so that people would just stand at the corner and feel अरे नहीं यार आगे नहीं जाएंगे, पता नहीं कहाँ और कितना दूर जा रहा है road. You know, that feeling comes and you feel good. You feel good कि देखो मैं कितने बड़े resort में बैठा हूँ यहाँ पर. So that is something which we work on, and of course a lot of plantation. And in this, because it was a rocky terrain, ट्रैक्टर आता है जिसमें पीछे एक 2 फुट का ड्रिल बिट होता है, तो वो मंगा लिया था, और 1 महीने उसको बोला कि भैया तेल हम डालेंगे, तू तो जहाँ जगह मिलता है छेद कर दे. तो रॉक में उसने कहा ठीक है बाबूजी, बस रोड था कि ठीक है रोड के इधर और उधर जितने छेद कर सकता है तू कर ले. So he would go and start drilling holes 3 फुट 2.5 फुट जितना भी खोद सकता था, बिकॉज ऑफ कोर्स रॉक ऐसा नहीं था हार्ड रॉक, सॉफ्ट रॉक था, बट लकली दैट सॉफ्ट रॉक वाज सच दैट नाउ वी हैव ह्यूज ट्रीज आउट देयर, तो लोगों को लगता है कि जंगल बन गया, एंड यू हैव ऑलमोस्ट 150 वैरायटी ऑफ ट्रीज आउट देयर, सॉरी 150 वैरायटी ऑफ बर्ड्स आउट देयर, almost 25 noted varieties of butterflies out there, and sometimes they say that हमें रात को कभी कभी पैंथर भी दिखा यहाँ से निकलते हुए. You know, your habitat should not be your habitat, it should belong to nature. Not that मैं कह रहा हूँ कि पैंथर एक कुछ नहीं होता, बड़ी सी बिल्ली होती है और कुछ नहीं, बगल से निकल जाएगा तो वो तो हम डरते हैं. But coming back to this, that your landscape design should be such that it invites nature back into the land. It starts settling down. If you see a lot of you can say flowers, और क्या चाहिए? I mean, as a human being, बच्चों को देखो तो चिड़िया, आजकल आप जरा यहाँ दिखा दो चिड़िया मुझे बाहर निकल के, right? You can't see one. So अब वहाँ पे it's like that's why people come. आज एक रिजॉर्ट है या कोई भी हॉस्पिटैलिटी सेक्टर में आप चीज करते हो तो वो लोग आते ही इसलिए हैं. सो दिस लैंडस्केप इज अ मेजर वेरी वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ द सब्जेक्ट ऑफ आर्किटेक्चर. नेक्स्ट. सो I'll just divert slightly from here, because as a landscape architect I told you it's not just about trees and birds and all that, it's also about artworks, crafts. I mean, already Sanjay sir has elaborated on that importance, but here I'd like to show you how we've done it. So local materials is the first thing that you do, and local materials are, you know, there's so many economical, it's good for stopping solar radiation, it gives you a texture, it gives you a flavor of the place, and of course it gives a lot of employment to the local masons out there, right? Because होता क्या है कि लोग शाई ऑफ कर लेते हैं, अरे ये क्यों करना है, 100 रुपए फुट ले रहा है वो, अरे आप 50 रुपए क्या 25 रुपए 50 रुपए में टेक्सचर पेंट बढ़िया से बढ़िया हो जाएगा. आई से दैट इज नॉट द पॉइंट. द पॉइंट इज देयर इज अ क्राफ्ट, एंड दैट क्राफ्ट इज डाइंग. वी गॉट टू कीप इट अलाइव. ये आपके जो 10 लाख 20 लाख ऊपर नीचे होगा उससे किसी का, आपका जेब में भी फर्क नहीं पड़ने वाला, but that craft and that craftsman will get employment. So that is a bigger thing that you're doing. और फिर क्लाइंट को समझ में आता है, अच्छा ऐसा है क्या, नहीं, फिर चलो एक काम करो, मारो गोली, आप तो जो बोल रहे हो करो इसको. You know, as an architect again you have to feed, you've got to educate your client. It's not just making drawings, right? Next. So in another project we did a lot of jalis, and that person said, I want my project, it was in Pushkar, he said I wanted to look like a Haveli in Jaisalmer. So I said ठीक है, फिर जैसलमेर के ही क्राफ्ट्समैन बुलाएंगे अपन, ऐसे करते हैं. So we called a whole team of Jaisalmer craftsmen, and they actually carved everything on site. एक पत्थर उन्होंने वहीं पे कार्व किया और उसको बनाया, उसको नापा, कुछ रिजेक्ट भी हुआ, कोई बात नहीं, दे मेड इट. द क्लाइंट सेड, मुकुल मेरे ना टोटल करीब 1.5 करोड़ रुपए खर्च हो रहे हैं मटेरियल समेत. मैंने कहा होने दो, आपको 1.5 करोड़ 2 साल में वापस हो जाएंगे, बट दीज गाइज विल बी एबल टू टेल देयर चिल्ड्रन कि नहीं ये धंधा अच्छा है, इसी में लगो, नहीं तो इनके बच्चे तो सब जा रहे हैं. नेक्स्ट. सो दिस इज नाउ व्हाट इट लुक्स लाइक. इट लुक्स लाइक Haveli from Jaisalmer, but those craftsmen were very very happy when they saw the final product, and of course everybody, but they went on, and today the receptionist says मुझे इतने लोग नंबर मांगते हैं उस आदमी का जिसने ये काम किया है. तो मैंने सोचा देखो आपके एक काम से उस आदमी को कितनी रोजगार मिल गई, his whole team. Next. So it's not about stone people, or they're minor people also. I was working on Ananta, and of course being one of the closest to the client, so he said, Mukul yaar ये एक रिसेप्शन और बनाना है हमें, और उस रिसेप्शन में ना फॉल सीलिंग वो वाला नहीं करना जो दिल्ली वाले आर्किटेक्ट ने किया था, उसने बहुत सारा जिप्सम बोर्ड और प्लाई बोर्ड और ये और वो दुनिया भर की चीजें लगा दी थी। सो मैंने कहा आप क्या चाहते हो? ही सेज एज अ लैंडस्केप आर्किटेक्ट तुम क्या करोगे? मैंने कहा मेरे से पूछोगे तो मैं कुछ ऐसा करूंगा कि फिर आप चिल्लाओगे। ही सेज क्या करोगे? मैंने कहा मैं तो बैम्बू लूंगा, उस पर वार्निश करूंगा और एक एक बैम्बू को, बिकॉज रूफ इज tapered, so it's made out of steel, MS mild steel, and because it's tapered, उसके पर्लिन्स पे मैंने कहा वो जहां जहां पर्लिन्स है वहां पे आपके ये बैम्बू को स्क्रू कर देंगे। सो इसे करके दिखाओ। ठीक है। लकली आवर फैब्रिकेटर वाज वेरी इंथ्यूजियास्टिक, उसने कहा सर मैं ही लेके आता हूँ बैम्बू। तो ही गॉट दीज बैम्बूज, इनफैक्ट सैंपल्स लेके आए, फिर हमने वो 1.5 इंच डाया का फाइनल किया एंड उस 1.5 इंच डाया के बैम्बूज को सटा सटा के, पहले वार्निश नीचे करके सटा सटा के उसने लगाए। क्लाइंट सेड यार मुकुल दिस इज अमेजिंग, एक तो इट्स ऑलमोस्ट पीनट्स नंबर 1 एंड नंबर 2 इट्स लुकिंग फैसिनेटिंग बिकॉज इट्स गिविंग दैट फील ऑफ अ रिजॉर्ट। सो ही सेड यार यही करो। एंड यहां पे नहीं, ही वाज मेकिंग अनदर दिस थिंग बैंक्वेट हॉल। उसने कहा बैंक्वेट हॉल नीचे तो मैं बढ़िया करा देता हूं, ऊपर सीलिंग आप यही कराना। देन सेकेंड वी केम टू लाइट्स। सो लाइट्स में क्या हुआ कि ही सेज यार लाइट्स तो मैंने बॉम्बे से लिए थे, एक एक शैंडलियर ना ऐसे ही बास्केट बनवाए थे मैंने बॉम्बे से, तो वो एक एक बास्केट मेरा 1.5, 2, 3, 5 लाख मतलब ऐसे आ रहे थे, कल 10-15 लाख रुपए खर्च हो गए। मैंने कहा छोड़ो अब ये लाखों की बात, अभी ये हजारों में ही करवा देते हैं काम आपका। सो आई न्यू दैट अ रिजॉर्ट इन उदयपुर वॉज अ वीवर्स विलेज, मतलब वहां बास्केट बनाते थे, वीव करके बास्केट बनाते थे ले जान के और बेचते थे वो बास्केट। तो मैंने कहा एक काम करते हैं, लोहार को बुलाया, आई मेड अ स्केच, जस्ट रिंग्स एंड बीच में एक डंडा। मैंने कहा इस डंडे पे अपन तार बांध के होल्डर लगा के बल्ब्स लग जाएंगे और आप ये जो लेडीज है ना उनको बुलाओ। तो वो खुद ही चले गए क्योंकि गांव के बहुत सारे लोग काम भी कर रहे थे रिजॉर्ट में, तो लेडीज को 2-4 बुलाया कि भाई इसको बास्केट बना दोगे? हाँ बना देंगे। तो बैठ के वहीं पे उन्होंने, so these things are basically woven by those people and उन्होंने कुछ नहीं, किसी ने 500 रुपए लिए, किसी ने 1000 रुपए लिए, किसी ने 1500 रुपए लिए, ऐसे करके ये सब बन गए। एंड ही सेज मुकुल अमेजिंग एंड दैट इज अ रिसेप्शन बैकड्रॉप which is nothing but a hand chiseled stone. सो कहने का अर्थ यह है कि आप एज एन आर्किटेक्ट क्लाइंट के लाखों रुपए भी खर्च करा सकते हो और उस लाखों रुपए को बचा के आप हजारों में भी बहुत सुंदर चीज बना सकते हो। इट्स अप टू यू, आई मीन हाउ यू यूज योर माइंड एंड हाउ यू लुक अराउंड। जैसे संजय सर ने भी कहा है, लुक अराउंड। आप बाहर जाते हो, आप फोटो खींचो, आप उस जगह को देखो, आप उसकी अच्छी चीजों को देखो, आप कपड़े देखो, क्या सर ने बताया कि द वीव पैटर्न्स, व्हाट आर पीपल डूइंग अराउंड दैट रिजॉर्ट, वो देखना बहुत जरूरी है। नेक्स्ट स्लाइड। I'll give you some more examples, like महुआ बाग में बेसिकली कुंभलगढ़ के बगल में एक जगह है जहां पे क्ले के टेराकोटा के वो म्यूरल्स बनते हैं एंड यू नो इट कि मुलैला करके जगह है एंड मुलैला में करीब 10-15 जनों को तो ऑलरेडी प्रेसिडेंट्स अवार्ड मिल चुका है फॉर दिस पर्टिकुलर क्राफ्ट्समैनशिप टू इंश्योर दैट इट डजंट डाई। तो मैंने क्लाइंट को कहा यार मुलैला तो बगल में है, तो उन्होंने कहा तो हम क्या करें? मैंने कहा कुछ नहीं, हम लोग निशेस बनाएंगे अपने बिल्डिंग्स में और निशेस बनाएंगे और उसको बुलाएंगे कि भाई तू आ और बता क्या लगाना है इसमें, लेट अस गिव हिम द चॉइस टू डू व्हाट ही वांट्स टू। तो आया कि साहब मैं क्या करूं? मैंने कहा देखो यहाँ पे आएंगे गेस्ट दूर दूर से, इंडिया से, बाहर से, तो उनको तुम अपने गांव के वो दिखाओ, तस्वीरें बना बना के दिखाओ। शो अ पर्सन प्लाउइंग द फील्ड, शो लेडीज सीविंग द ग्रेन, दही बिलोना, ये सब चीजें दिखाओ उनको, पेड़ कैसे होते हैं क्या। सो ही सेज ठीक है हम ऐसे ही करते हैं। तो ही मेड 1 feet by 1 feet terracotta tiles with this and he, not only he, we engaged almost 25 people and later on the client gave him a permanent kiosk free of cost in that resort कि तुम यहीं बैठो और जो गेस्ट आएंगे उनको तुम दिखाओ और अगर वो तुम्हारा काम पसंद करते हैं तुम उनके यहाँ काम कर लो। So these guys were given an opportunity for employment also, just through a small intervention of an architect. So you can realize that how important you are in the whole scheme of things. आप अपने इंपॉर्टेंस को कम मत करना किसी भी प्रोजेक्ट में. You are there and you can create a difference. So all these things, the sculpture, नीचे ये स्पाउट है छोटा सा, ये स्पाउट मैंने बनवाया है ठटेरों के रास्ते में जयपुर में, जहां पे सदियों से वो बीटन ब्रास और बीटन मेटल को शेप देते हैं, कास्टिंग करते हैं. तो उसको मैंने स्केच करके बनाया, उसने और सुंदर बना दिया उसको, स्पाउट को. तो क्लाइंट ने कहा यार ये तो बड़ा मजेदार चीज बना दी. मैंने कहा देख लो. सो it is up to us how we can take things forward. Next. So artworks में ये और examples हैं sculptures के, metal sculptures के. In fact, the left side slide actually has these dancing girls who are rotating with the pressure of water. There's no motor in them. They rotate just because पानी तो ऊपर आना ही था fountain का, तो उसको उसके ऊपर वो cap लगा के it has a kind of a device which makes it rotate. So लोग यहाँ के सेल्फी खींचते हैं. वो गार्ड कहता है मैं परेशान हो गया हूँ, 50-50 आदमी आके रोज के तारीख में यहाँ पे खड़े होके फोटो खिंचवाते हैं, तो उनको भगाना पड़ता है. सो दैट इज अ काइंड ऑफ इफेक्ट, और आई मीन इफेक्ट यू कैन गेट इनटू योर डिजाइन्स. नेक्स्ट. And of course, this last slide before I leave is a slide which I wanted to show because it was a existing orchard. उस एग्जिस्टिंग ऑर्चर्ड में बिना पेड़ काटे हम लोगों ने अपना सारा लैंडस्केप और स्ट्रक्चर्स सेटअप किए थे. एंड यू कैन सी द ट्रीज विच आर जस्ट पॉपिंग आउट फ्रॉम नोवेयर. इट इज बिकॉज दे वर देयर फर्स्ट, द बिल्डिंग केम इन लेटर. सो अगेन दीज आर थिंग्स विच यू गाइज हैव टू बी सेंसिटिव अबाउट. डोंट से कि अरे मैं इस जमीन को काट दूंगा, सीधा कर दूंगा. या पहाड़ों में जाओ तो ये मत कहो कि अरे ये पहाड़ी काट देते हैं, फ्लैट कर देते हैं. नहीं, फ्लैट मत करो, कुछ मत छेड़ो. उसके नीचे भी तो लोग रह रहे हैं. जमीन में जो हैं उनको क्यों डिस्प्लेस करना है, या जो पेड़ हैं उनको क्यों डिस्प्लेस करना है. जस्ट बिल्ड अराउंड इट. यू हैव कम सेकंड, दे केम फर्स्ट. तो उनको उस तरह का इंपॉर्टेंस दो. सो एज अ लैंडस्केप आर्किटेक्ट बहुत बड़ी एक रिस्पॉन्सिबिलिटी आपके कंधों पे होती है. यू हैव टू ब्रिंग आउट द बेस्ट of the building that the architect has built. At the same time, you have to take care of the nature that's surrounding it. And believe me, जिसे कहते हैं ना बरकत, उस बिल्डिंग में बरकत तभी आती है जब आपकी लैंडस्केप बहुत अच्छा होता है. सो दैट्स व्हाट आई एंड माय presentation with. Thank you everyone for a patient hearing.
Thank you, Mukul sir. In first year, we have always been learning elements and principles of design. And this is a very good example how landscape design principles and elements can be practiced, implemented into projects. Any questions from Mukul sir? There has to have questions, otherwise Sanjay sir is going to ask from you. Yes? Final year questions? No questions? Over to you, Sanjay sir. You want to ask some questions to them?
I mean, it's not questions. I think let's just have a dialogue, have an interaction. I think let's hear from the students. What would they like to do after you guys pass out? क्या करना चाहते हैं? अभी what about it? What are you going to do? You want to do something on your own? You want to go join somebody? करोगे तो क्या करना है? What would you like to do? 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 What would you like
I think one of the important thing is, and that's not to do only with uh, this session. It is also to do with whenever you go out. It happens with me. Okay, we design, we detail out, and then I'll go somewhere. I'll see something which I get inspired, and then I would be very restless to come back and see, how I can incorporate that in my design if I like it. और I think वही learning है जो आज हम लोगों ने discussion किया. Some of the projects I showed, Mukul showed. I don't know how many of you are thinking, especially the people who are doing their design thesis, is that okay, that's something that's very interesting, and I can look at it an opportunity in my design to incorporate this. Like he said, let's respect the land, right? Some of you might have not done that while you were doing the design thesis, okay, but you see that now, so you should be thinking that, yes, that's a valid point. I would like to go back and change my design. Okay, we do that all the time. I'm not saying that if you are in the verge of submission that you start going and rocking the boat, not at all. But if you have time, this is what it is about. Design is never that we've thought about an approach and then we're stuck with it. Okay, it is an ever evolving process, and that's why I say that architects must be the most the best learners. You can learn from anything and everything. Okay, so think about it. Anybody else wants to say something, share something? When do you know when you have to stop? When you have the sword on your head, that then only you stop. No, it's a good question. It's a good question. I mean, I would have asked Tariq to come and respond to this because he faces that so many number of times with me, and because I jump into the project and I start making changes. I मतलब मैं इनको हिंदी में बोलता हूँ कि मैं तहस नहस कर देता हूँ सब चीज़ों को. And then he asked me, he says, this is all okay, but we have to submit tomorrow, boss. अब हट जाओ पीछे. So I said that just keep me out of it. But it's a relevant question. When do you stop? I think you have to evaluate. The milestones are important. The target dates are important. So sometimes you have to respect that. But at the same time, if there are fundamental issues, okay, and there have been times that I have put the team to change everything overnight. Okay, and he told me, there's no time. I said, I don't care, because you cannot get the fundamentals of design wrong. Like he's saying that if you cut the whole hill out, that's a fundamental problem. Then there's no time at which you cannot sort of amend that. Okay, but there are other things which is about detailing, which is about imagery, which is about how it looks and how it feels. Addition of layers, lighting and street furniture and textures and whatnot. Okay, those are things that can wait. So you can evaluate that, अभी time नहीं है boss, अभी 2 दिन में submission है तो फिर चलो उसको करते हैं. Then and then there's another aspect to it, and I am sure the faculty here would understand that our times we were told that your thesis gets submitted and that's it, you can't do anything to it. Well, that's not how the professional world works. Okay, we always do that. There is a submission of a competition, we put that in, and after that the work continues, right? Because everybody has that time. Okay, and the design, if it can be improved, nothing wrong with it. If it was that only few people have the actual jury date 2 weeks later and everybody else has as of 2 days, then I can understand. But since everybody has the jury later on, if they can add, well, why not? But that's not my domain.
But one more very important thing, the deadline is always there.
Yeah, that's very important. Yeah, sure.
Deadline is always there.
Sure.
That's we are aware of.
Yeah. No, the the road was not elevated. It was the monorail which was elevated. The arterial road was very much on the surface. You see, it's an interesting question. You know, of what do you do? On one hand, you have a scenario where the traffic creates an issue. There are so many traffic congestions, etc. Now the problem lies somewhere else. You know, when we talk about America, or you talk about other cities in the world, you know, what is the kind of model that they followed? Okay, you know, this word was not heard 25, 30 years back. Suburbs, all right. It was not heard in India. 30 साल पहले नहीं था, 35 साल पहले नहीं था, 40 साल पहले नहीं था. दिल्ली का सबर्ब क्या है? गुड़गांव, राइट, और नोएडा है. बट सबर्ब की डेफिनेशन सारी दुनिया में ये कभी नहीं रही है. Suburb means that you have the main city, and then you have nothing that gets built, and then you have a node which has got built, which is a suburb where people go out of the city because they can afford better lifestyles, more land where their children can play, okay, low-rise development, you know, more trees, which is disjointed from the city, connected only by main, you know, let's say monorails or trams or highways, etc. So what does it do? You know, you have a city which is very congested. Let's take an example. You talked about America. Let's take an example of San Francisco. I was recently there. It's a very dense city, high-rise developments in the middle of the city, and within the city also there are developments which are 1-2 stories high, and then it has nothing for some time. All right. Then you will have these smaller developments which are happening, which are residential developments, community in themselves, Fremont and Cupertino and, you know, Oakland, etc. But all these suburbs have green spaces in between. We don't have suburbs in India. We don't have suburb in Delhi. You know, people say Gurgaon. I say, you know, where can you draw a line between where Delhi finishes and Gurgaon begins? Forget the geographical border. Can you do it with the natural lay of the land or the natural vegetation? You can't, because it is an organic growth which is just happening across, right? And that is leading you to a situation where you've congested the city beyond, you know, beyond what you could recognize. What is the population of Delhi NCR? You're looking at 30 million. 3 crore लोग हैं. पूरे ऑस्ट्रेलिया में 3 करोड़ लोग हैं. Okay, पूरा ऑस्ट्रेलिया समाया हुआ है यहाँ पर. Entire America is 33 crore people. उसका 10% तो यहाँ है. So, you know, the comparisons are very different. That is why you're forced to get into the situation of flyovers. Flyovers are not bad things. Okay. Also, if flyover is a necessity, if the traffic segregation is a necessity, it's not, let's not call it flyover. I think it's a traffic segregation. If traffic segregation is a necessity, how do you ensure that that necessity is designed in a manner that it's not doing harm while it is supposed to do good? I think that is a larger thought that, you know, one needs to look at. So if you can, you know, we would not like to build these flyovers. You know, I had the choice of, somebody said this actually, you know, without naming, you know, somebody said this when we were doing Pragati Madan, why don't we build a flyover? I said, are you out of your mind? You know, why would you want to do that? You know, you're not going to build a summit hall and mess it up with a flyover, right? So we said we'll do these subways. You know, we'd go under the ground, and, you know, we build these and display some of the snakes and other people out there. So I hope that somehow addresses your question. Thank you.
Now I request Professor Kamar Irshad Saab to extend his vote of thanks.
So good afternoon. So it's a great pleasure and honor that I stand before you today to deliver this this vote of thanks for this remarkable event. We have been truly privileged to host the two eminent architects, Architect Sanjay Singh and Architect Mukul Goyal, who have graced us with their knowledge and insight during this extension lecture. First and foremost, I would like to express our profound gratitude to the esteemed architects for taking time out of their busy schedules to share their wisdom and experiences with our students. Sir, your lectures were been nothing short of inspirational, providing our budding architects with invaluable insights into the world of architecture. Your passion for your craft and your dedication to nurturing the future of architecture have left us an indelible mark on our institution. I would also like to extend a heartfelt appreciation to all the students who have attended this lecture. Your active participation and enthusiasm are a testament to our commitment to learning and growing in the field of architecture. It's through such engagements that you will truly enrich your knowledge and continue to excel in your academic pursuits. I must acknowledge the tireless efforts of architect Mohammad Ziauddin Saab and his team of student volunteers who have worked diligently to organize and coordinate this event. Your dedication to ensuring that our students have access to the best educational experiences is commendable, and we are grateful for your hard work. Special thanks goes to all the staff members who have played a role in making this event run smoothly, from arranging the venue to providing technical support and ensuring that our guests had a comfortable and working environment. Last but not the least, our sincere gratitude goes to the audiences, our students, colleagues, and the distinguished guests for being part of this enlightening evening. And your presence here today reflects your commitment to your support for the institution. Thank you once again, everyone involved in making this event a success. We look forward to more such enlightening experiences in near future. Have a wonderful day. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kamar Saab. We call it a day, and we'll request Sanjay sir, Mukul sir to just have a small walk around. MF Hussain Art Gallery is there by Romi Khosla and all, and we'll have a snacks out there. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.